Some nights, the city becomes a bit too much. The incessant honking of the cars, the blinding city lights, the ceaseless chatter, they all seem to close in, making it impossible to breathe. I found myself suffocating amidst the urban chaos that night. I hopped in my old rusty Chevy, rolled up my sleeves, and dived into the dense, quiet forest roads of Virginia. With every mile I left behind, I grew distant not only from the city's bustle, but also the neon glow of civilization. As the concrete shrunk into a speck in my rearview mirror, I realized the enormity of the silence that the wilderness carried. Only the hum of my engine broke the tranquility, accompanied by the rustling of the leaves. The full moon hung low in the sky, draping the bent trees with an almost ethereal glow. A sense of calm started seeping into me, until an unsettling realization prickled my skin. My fuel gauge was dangling precariously over the red marker. My attempts to find an escape from my ordinary struggles began an unraveling of a harrowing journey. There was fear in uncertainty, but desperation washed it all away. With the ache of survival surging through my veins, I strained my eyes to spot any signs of salvation. Off in the distance, overrun by years of neglect and nature's wiles, rose an old decaying house. A pair of pale, milky orbs, the vintage gas pump in its yard, glared at me like a beckoning ghost. My intuition started ringing just like the fuel warning bell, voicing the words, "Turn around, don't stop, ignore it." But when push comes to shove, you're more willing to make choices that seem absurd under different circumstances. I slowly approached the ghostly property. The paint on the house was flaky, the wooden porch creaky, and the overall aura hauntingly still. A faint echo of what once must have been laughter and mirth hung heavy, now replaced by an unsettling emptiness. The eerie silence was my only company, as I unsuccessfully knocked on the door and found the house abandoned. Pooling all my courage, I decided to siphon some gas out of the pump, convincing myself it was a matter of survival. As the fuel flowed, so did an unsettling symphony of whispers and crunching leaves, floating to me from the leathery darkness of the surrounding woods. The wind, imbued with muffled whispers, brushed against my face. Shadows flickered and danced on the knotted trunks of the cowering trees. My courage began to weave itself into paranoia. I was about to laugh at my overactive imagination when a sight froze me in my tracks. Out of the pointed silhouette of the thick forest emerged a figure, eerie and tall, regarding me with unseen eyes. A chill ran down my spine. The figure began lurching towards me, slowly yet steadily. I could feel my heart hammering against my chest. Despite the fear clogging my throat, I continued with the gas, hoping that whatever it was would dissolve back into the woods. Under the stark light of the full moon, the figure loomed closer, revealing its twisted, grotesque face. It felt like staring into the abyss, the face of fear itself, the epitome of every horror story ever told. Hot fear surged through me, and I dropped the fuel hose. I fumbled with the car keys, and as the car roared to life, so did the beastly figure. It sprinted towards me, limbs flailing in grotesque fashion. The road whirred beneath me, the car shook, and the chase made my adrenaline surge. I dared not look in the rearview mirror, screaming towards the city's glow. As I reached the main road, the tether to the nightmare snapped, leaving only the ghost of my terror behind. Come daybreak, the monotonous city life tried to dull the fear, to bury it deep within. But my efforts proved futile, and the terror clawed its way out. The grotesque face of the dark entity from the forest forever etched into my psyche. One night, I woke up to the whispering wind. The same chilling melody from the lonely, drifting night at the eerie home. It marked the beginning of the end, the reality of my living nightmare. The dark figure from the forest invaded my dreams, creeping into my consciousness like an uninvited geist. Every night was a struggle. Every quiet moment a tussle between my sanity and fear. Shadows played tricks on my ease under the moonlight, turning into grotesque figures, and whispers of the wind morphed into chilling messages. The ending of my story remains unknown, living each moment in fear and anticipation of what might come next. The thought of being watched hunted, fills me with a sense of impending doom, leaving you, the reader, with the unnerving realization there are horrors lurking beneath the shadows of a full moon. My enthusiasm, reckless you might call it, had led me astray from the bustling freeways into lonesome back roads with nothing but starlight to paint the way. It was a ceaseless drive to the horizon, beyond the comfort of the small town I'd so long called home. A sense of newfound liberation looking forward to life beyond the confines. Before the vanishing twilight, I had set out on these less-tread paths in my rickety car, choosing isolation over crowds and convenience. I was welcomed by silence except for my occasional companions on the FM radio and the soothing rhythm of the vehicle's hum barely registering as white noise after hours on the road. Though my car was as stable as a Vantage coupe on its last legs, I made an oversight. My eyes were set on my destination, forgetting the little onboard gasoline meter creeping towards E. Suddenly, with a throaty sputter of protest, the old vehicle halted. My eyes darted to the gas needle. It was on the wrong side of E. I had run out of fuel, in the middle of God knows where. A gas station was miles away, swallowed by the stretch of desolate back roads which were now blanketed by an inky black night sky, the quiet punctuated occasionally by the distant hoot of a nocturnal bird. The roads bereft of another living soul. The winds appeared to sigh with an inexplicably eerie undertone. Upon straining my eyes into the gloom, I spotted an oddly faint flickering signage not too far ahead. Carrying a flashlight and sighing in resignation, I trudged towards it. My hopes turned brittle when I came close. It was an ancient, decrepit gas station. The stillness permeating the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Time seemed to have not just stopped, but frozen. Forced by my desperate situation, I ventured inside, against every instinct screaming in my head. Dusty windows, creaky floorboards, each step I took looking for gasoline seemed to echo in the eerie silence. A rusted gas can, half covered in cobwebs, lay forgotten in a corner. Yet, there was no sign of any patron vehicle or indeed any hint of human presence. My heart pounded, every rustle of dried leaves whispering wind and my own echoing footsteps unsettling me. I couldn't quench the growing feeling of unease, the sensation of being watched. As if there were eyes from unseen corners observing me. A chill picked up, stirring the leaves and my nerves alike. I hastily filled the can, desperate to leave this chilling piece of desolation. But as I turned to leave, my heart skipped a beat. My keys weren't where I had left them. Frantically searching, I found them in the most obvious place, hanging in the car ignition, obscured under the shadows. But as relief washed over me, it was quickly replaced by terror. My eyes locked onto the rearview mirror. A tall, shadowy figure loomed in the distance, its strange and menacing form becoming clearer with each second. Panic gripped me. Adrenaline flooded my system, forcing me to react. Without wasting a moment and with shaky hands, I hastily poured the fossil fuel into the tank. As soon as the can was discarded, I jumped into the car, starting the engine on the second try, just as the figure started knocking with a hollow thud on my car's windows. The entity gave an inhuman shriek, chilling me to the bone, as I floored the pedal and the old car roared to life, flying down the deserted road. The rear-view mirror revealed the entity, running impossibly fast after me, its shriek sinking into a drowned growl as I gained distance. After an agonizingly long drive, lights appeared in the distance. A small town, first signs of civilization I'd seen in hours. Exhausted and shaken, I pulled into the town. My body was trembling as I got out of the car and stumbled into the nearest open place, a 24-hour diner. I narrated my harrowing ordeal to an old local over a steaming mug of coffee. The old man listened solemnly before finally speaking. He revealed the gas station was indeed abandoned long ago. Several mysterious disappearances and unexplained occurrences led to its closure. As his words sunk in, my gaze fixed onto the night. Beyond the safety of town lights and into the dark embrace of the terrifying back roads. As I retired to a nearby motel room, I glanced outside the window. There it was, the shadowy figure. Now merely a silhouette, standing at a distance, an ominous reminder of my encounter. That night still lingers in every questionable shadow, every unexplained whisper of the wind. The chilling encounter made me question not just the reality I so firmly believed in, but also the unchecked terrors lurking in the unseen corners of this world. At the brink of oblivion, on desolate roadways, there waits something inexplicably terrifying. And every time I close my eyes, it is against the backdrop of those forgotten back roads that my mind staggers, tripping on fear and teetering on the edge of insanity. I'm afraid to look back.